Beachman Motor Company makes one of the coolest looking electric motorcycles you've never heard of. It may legally be considered a moped, but don't get it twisted. You can actually ride their 64 model on the road. It's the brainchild of Ben Taylor, one of the co-founders of the Canadian-based company, who's got a soft spot for the classic designs of the 60s and 70s. He had a dream to combine the cutting-edge technology of the EV world with the timeless styling of classic small-displacement Japanese motorcycles. Think a cafe'd-out Kawasaki KZ200 or Honda CB250, just with a battery and electric hub-mounted motor instead of an internal combustion engine. After meeting his co-founder Steve, who was already building cafe racers for fun, Beachman was born. But Ben's aim is higher than just cramming a battery into a classic-style bike. He wants folks who would normally never throw a leg over a motorcycle to try a Beachman, introducing a whole new crowd to just how fun two wheels can be, and to prove to the world that a small electric motorcycle can be a viable form of transportation. This is Ben Taylor. I'm your host, Mark Long, and you're listening to Driven to Ride. All right, Ben Taylor, you are on Driven to Ride. Thank you for being here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into everything that you guys do at Beachman. Before we do that, I want to hear it from you first. What do people most know you for, and what would you say your claim to fame is, in your own words?
Yeah. So I'm known, or beginning to become known now, as one of the co-founders. There's two of us here at Beachman. So we started our company together back in 2021, and Beachman has grown, from two guys in a garage to a globally spanning automaker. So we produce electric motorcycles and e-bikes, and pretty much all of them are in the style and vein of a 1960s old school cafe racer. Think like Honda or Ducati or Royal Enfield. Those awesome 60s through 80s kind of standard motorcycles that had that sweet cafe racer treatment done to them. And we build our bikes to meet the 50cc and 125cc categories. So essentially making the perfect, friendly, easy to ride intro bike, for anyone in the world who wants to ride and is fascinated with motorcycles, but just hasn't taken that step, or for guys that, they've got 20 different motorcycles in the garage, but they want one that's a little more convenient than, firing up the old giant bike. So yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, the styling is beautiful. It really kind of harkens back to that old school age. And we'll get into the e-bike thing and e-moto and kind of that low power entry level motorcycle category that's really kind of not around much lately. But before we do that, how did you kind of get into the motorcycling world into the first place?
Yeah, so I have a pretty untraditional entrance to motorcycles. When I was a kid, I was definitely interested in them. And my first experience ever getting on a bike was when I was, I think, 10 years old, and maybe even younger. I was probably 8. And I went with my family to a place called Hardwood Hills, which is a classic dirt bike. It's a mountain covered in trails, and a lot of mountain biking and dirt biking. And it was a dirt bike summer camp. So I went to the camp with my whole family, and it was this intro day pass. So my brother and I would go and join, with a group of kids that were all riding little 50cc dirt bikes around. And then my parents went out on some proper trail bikes. And on that day, I had the best day ever riding around. Oh my God, it was so much fun. My brother, who was like 6 or 7 at the time, he tipped over his bike and whiskey throttled it and got super scared, had a kind of a tough experience. And my mom whiskey throttled like a 250cc and did a full wheelie down a trail and, almost hit a tree. And that really, after that day, my mom was like, yep, no more motorcycles.
I'm done,
yeah, exactly. So after that day, I didn't get back on a bike until I was 19, I think. Always admired them, but just never really had an opportunity to get on one, and became more of a car guy. But when I lived in Vancouver, so I'm from Toronto, and I moved to Vancouver to go work in the film industry. I was super broke. I couldn't afford a car. Didn't want to be taking the bus, so I bought a little Tomos Targa 50cc moped, which is just this classic Eastern European bike. They're really the only 50 cc's around you can find these days that have that kind of proper motorcycle look. You know, that they aren't
Sure.
like a Honda Cub or a Vespa or something like that. And that was kind of my deal. Was I wanted a little bike, something easy and simple, cheap insurance and all that,
Hmm.
but didn't look like a scooter. I just would not could be caught dead riding a scooter. You know, I was 19 years old. I had to look cool.
Sure.
So
You got to look cool.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So I got this Targa and it was busted. And my roommate's brother came. He was a mechanic and he got it fixed up and running for us. And that first day of riding it up and down the street in front of my house was just one of the best days of my life. Like all my buddies happened to be there that day, so we were all taking turns, you know, ripping up and down this quiet street, and just that stupid two-stroke sound, you know, ding, 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 just having a blast. No helmet, hair in the wind, like it was awesome. And I was sold from then on, and just fell in love with the freedom and the the stupid joy of riding a little bike like that. And pretty quickly after that, started thinking about, okay, what an incredible, painful experience it was for me to track this bike down, and
Sure.
what a horrible piece of machinery it was. You know, I was fixing the carburetor on the side of the road every day. Um, and so I started thinking, okay, how can I make a bike that, you know, meets all these requirements of looking cool and being small and easy and cheap, but is new and doesn't
Yeah.
fall apart. And so I kind of started dreaming that up. And then I sold that Targa and I didn't ride again for a while. So the next bike I owned was a Beachman. So we can get into that after. But yeah, that's kind of my intro to riding. It was a hiccups, a little bit of dirt bike as a kid and having a moped as an adult, and kind of getting my eyes open again to how much fun and how much freedom there could be.
Yeah. Well, and having that kind of the small displacement, simple, cheap insurance, it is really a great entry point into that two-wheeled kind of hobby and lifestyle because, yeah, you really focus on having fun. You can wind it out all the way. You're not like necessarily scared of the power or anything like that. And it does give you the freedom to go where you want to go, especially like in a city, which that seems to be kind of the ethos or the DNA of what Beachman is all about with the relatively equivalent of small displacement and just cruising around and having fun and also looking cool. So, but how did Beachman even then kind of go from like a dream into your head into something that now you're manufacturing bikes almost all over the world now?
Yeah. So essentially, for the first few years after I got that moped, I was on my own. Um, I was a guy. I had a film school education. I was working in sales and marketing, and I had been running an Instagram page called Beachman Life, and
Okay.
I still run it today. It's kind of a side thing to the company, but it was like a hobby where I had this page and it was a brand without a product basically. So it was
Okay.
totally dedicated to that, like, yeah, like that cool Steve McQueen, James Dean 60s California lifestyle of riding motorbikes and surfing. And I, I wanted to build something in that space. And the idea I had that I knew I wanted to do was take the best products of that era, because in the 60s and 70s there was a lot of weird stuff too, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But looking back, we forget all the weird products, and we remember the golden age stuff. And it was like, okay, if I could handpick those items that have just lasted and revive them with modern engineering, modern technology, get rid of all the pains of having real vintage pieces, then I can make a really cool company. And the golden dream was always to do a motorbike.
Hmm.
But I didn't know anything, you know, so I was messaging people on Alibaba and like hiring, you know, bike and car 3D design guys that I found on Instagram to like do mock-ups for me. And I was just telling everyone I knew, "Yeah, I'm going to do this thing one day, these bikes." And then I moved back to Toronto, and a good friend of mine from kindergarten was a barista at the end of my street by chance at that point. And
Okay. Yeah.
he texted me one day and he said, "Hey, your neighbor, his wife keeps coming in to my shop and buying coffee, and as I understand it, he builds cafe racers in his garage. You should tell him this Beachman thing you've been talking about. Here's his email. And so I sent Steve an email, and it's funny. I still have that. I found it like recently, and it's just like, hey, Steve, I'm this guy. I live down the street. I have this idea for an electric cafe racer. Um, talked about some comparative brands, and Steve writes me back. He goes, hey, well, that's a good idea. I build cafe racers, and I'm actually have been working on making an electric one. I have like some of the
No
parts
way.
already in my garage. Yeah. I
Yeah,
haven't done it
wild.
yet, but yeah, let's definitely talk. So we had a coffee, and I had like a pitch deck. I showed Steve.
Yeah.
I think I didn't even get all the way through it. I think we talked for like 5 minutes about it, and then he was like, "All right, let's just go to my garage and look at my bikes." So we basically the company started then, like 20 minutes into us meeting, and went back to his garage and showed me the different bikes. Picked one out, Kawasaki KZ200, and then Steve over the next year. So that was basically COVID. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
he from 2019 until the end of 2020, Steve was working on the bike. He built the first prototype out of that Kawasaki. I bought it off of him. That was our trade. I was like, I'll pay you, and he did the labor, and
Sure.
then
Yeah.
I got the bike, um, and I still ride that bike. It's still my
Oh, no
daily.
way. You still got it?
Yeah. We call it Zero, Bike Zero.
Yeah.
Pre
Nice.
version 1. So yeah, it's just down in the factory below my office here. So so we worked together. That part, it was really a lot of Steve's work. I had already had the brand done, so he hunkered down, built this prototype, found suppliers, and just started going. And then essentially, we were just like two dudes on regular salaries, and I was too young to have any assets. So Steve, was the one with the house, and he took out a loan on his mortgage, and
Wow.
bought the first 30 bikes, and we just started from there. So
Well, and it sounds like it's growing, and it's really just taken off, and the response has been, insanely positive. I mean, doing some prep before talking with you. I mean, everybody that I watched or read about, I mean, are just they're kind of captivated by the style. I think the approachability of the bike. Tell me a little bit about the motorcycle itself. What's it called? Give me some specs if you can on what you're riding there.
absolutely, yeah. So when we started the company, it's kind of a good segue to kind of go back to where we were. So we were just two guys in a garage building them in Steve's backyard, basically, and they were e-bikes, because in North America there's this weird category of like e-bikes that look like motorbikes, and it was perfect for us because we didn't have automaker license, we didn't know how to
Hmm.
handle all the legislation around it, but we could just get started with the e-bike. So in the beginning, that's what it was. It had this speed limit. You can only go 20 miles an hour, and there was like an
Mm.
off-road thing, and then you could pump it up to 30 and rip around like that. Um, but now, we've moved into a more sophisticated position. So, our bike now. So first of all, they're hand built in Canada. I believe we're the only people building motorcycles in North America, really, at least at scale. There's some smaller shops like Spark Cycle Works, awesome operation out in New England. But they're, like just a few guys kind of hand building. We're doing a full production line here.
Okay.
Um, and so the bike is an electric moped, essentially. So we've set it up I'll talk about the US. They're a bit different in US and Canada, with the
Hmm.
main difference just being that you have to make a decision in Canada if you want the e-bike or if you want the moped. But in the US, we're able to essentially ship it as an e-bike because it meets all federal and state requirements as an e-bike. And then it also comes with a moped ownership. So post purchase, the customer can go in to the DMV, register and plate the bike, insure it if you're required to in your state, and then you can switch over the drivetrain post registration to meet your moped certifications. So
Hmm.
the bike
Okay.
has essentially 3 speed settings on it. There's 20 mile per hour, which is the e-bike limit. There's 30 mile per hour, which is most states' moped limit, and then 45 miles per hour, which is either like off road or in certain states and territories, that is the moped top speed. So we've created a hybrid platform because, we're a company of 10 people in Canada. And
Yeah.
so we don't have the ability to make all these different product lines. So we've just made one bike that's flexible. And then essentially every customer, when you get the bike, you sign a waiver just agreeing that, you're going to use it legally within your state's setup. And and the bike fully allows you to do that. So it's a really fun bike. The torque on it is equivalent to a 125cc, because
Okay.
it's electric. Um,
Yeah.
but then the speed limit, horsepower, etc., are limited down to the 50cc, so that it has that awesome, super low barrier to entry moped status. Which in like half the states in the U.S., you don't need any kind of license or anything. You just got to plate it, register it, and you can ride it around. Certain states, it's a bit harder to get. Like in California, you need your full M license to ride a
Okay.
moped,
Yeah.
which is the way it is in Canada, which is too bad. I think it's an oversight that forces people into these larger and more dangerous bikes, or to force them to buy a car when all they want is like an easy little ride. But
Yeah.
for most of the U.S., it's just a perfect solution for someone who wants to commute, screw around with their buddies on the weekend, go to coffee shops, have fun, either a weekend rider or an all week round commuter. It's just an awesome, fun bike. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea because I'm sure as you've heard from maybe people in the motorcycle industry or maybe even like the moped e-bike industry is that kids don't want to ride motorcycles or people aren't really getting into motorcycles or whatever. And my theory at least is because there's no opportunity to do that. And I think it's great that you guys are kind of filling that void and being that product that can give that opportunity to people because like at least where I live in the US, I mean, I see kids like little kids on mopeds or e-bikes or whatever. And I think the desire's there. It's just, there's not an opportunity. And even if there is an opportunity, it might be cost prohibitive where you guys seem like you've got kind of an affordable situation. And to hear that it's a flexible option like that's something that you can actually grow into, I think is very, very cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's a great point about the desire being there. And we know that's a fact because what we're seeing right now in the electric market is Suron and Talaria, right? I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with them, but these dirt bike electric bikes that are just blowing up. I think they did 9,000 bikes last year in America. And
Wow.
those bikes, they're not road legal, they're not e-bikes, and they're not mopeds, right? They're just dirt bikes. They're just illegal dirt bikes. And so what we're seeing right now is two things happening simultaneous, which was a massive wave of sales and adoption, right? Suron sells more bikes every year than the entire motorcycle electric industry combined, all other
Wow.
competing brands, excluding other clones of their bike. There's a bunch of like
Okay, sure.
knockoffs, um, but you know, when you look at what's available to youth, that's the option. And everyone is buying these things. So that's the first thing you see is this wave of sales. The other thing we're seeing is this wave of pushback and regulation where state by state, most importantly, municipality by municipality and county by county, these bikes are being outlawed because they don't fit in any category and they're pretty dangerous, right? You're basically giving a kid a 15 horsepower dirt bike at the age of 16 and they're starting to do wheelies through red lights and people are getting hurt. And so eventually, angry parent teacher organizations and stuff like that are getting laws passed. And so we see that there is this shift toward small bikes. Young people do want to be riding them, but there's also a shift forcing people to start looking at the real street legal options. And right now, we're basically the only one is
Mhm.
Beachman. And so we're seeing uptake in regards to that. There's still, that American Wild West mentality where, like, I talk to my dealers who they sell my bikes and they sell Surons, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I sell a family on a Friday afternoon a Suron. By Thursday, or not even by Tuesday of the next week, the police have impounded that bike,
Oh my
and the
God.
next Friday." The next Friday, the parents are in my shop and they're buying their kid a second one.
Wow.
It's just like
That's insane,
that
man.
is I mean, that's America, right? People they don't like to be told what to do. So, but we're sticking on the side of caution and the side of what's right and what's road legal. So, that's the direction we've been moving in. But aside from, us and those little dirt bikes, the only other real option that you see on the low end of the market is basically just the Honda Grom. And
Sure. Yeah.
unfortunately, it's probably the ugliest bike that you can buy. So it's I think with young people who want to look cool, like I was that guy, right? I was 19. I wouldn't be caught dead riding a Grom. It's just a bizarre thing. And for some reason, kind of like how in the EV market, until recently with like Rivian and Slate and stuff, there was this kind of mentality that if it was electric, it could just be ugly and futuristic, and all you had
Yeah.
was the Teslas, which they're just kind of boring. They're just circular. They're like the Apple mouse. And then you had the Prius and some electric Kias and the Nissan Leaf. They're just really
Hmm.
unattractive vehicles. And I think there's a similar thing in the low CC space. There's the Honda CBR 125, which is definitely a cool bike, but intimidating, I think, to ride for
Sure.
people
Yeah.
who are just looking for something comfortable. Or, you go in the direction of a Vespa, which again is super cool if you're into scooters. And if you're not, it's like the worst thing ever. You never be caught dead on it. And
Yeah.
so I think bridging that gap of approachability and style is what's key to our success.
Yeah, and it's something interesting you mentioned earlier is that you've got people who are just getting into the motorcycling space or the moped or e-bike space, and they're kind of dipping their toes in, or it's people with like 20 bikes that want something a little bit different. From those kind of two groups of people, what kind of feedback have you gotten, and why do people like their Beachmans as much as they do?
In terms of those two groups, it's pretty interesting. We we definitely see. I'd actually say that there's two axes that we could talk about who buys our bike. So the
Yeah.
first one, yeah, is divided between beginner riders and experienced riders. They all love the bike for different reasons, and I think that there's a bit of a crossover there with our other kind of divide that we see, which is young people that are buying our bike to commute every day,
Mhm.
um, and an older crowd, 40s, 50s, 60s that are retired or semi-retired, and they're just looking for like a fun weekend toy. It's basically like a jet ski for the land. They ride
Yeah.
on Saturday and Sunday, and they go visit their buddy and have a couple of beers and watch the game. And it's definitely different crowds, but they all love the bike equally. So to answer your question directly, for beginner riders, there's this universal experience when people get on Beachman where they sit on it and the seat height is comfortable and it's comfy and it's light, and they pull the throttle for the first time and it's got a little bit of pep to it, that little bit of electric torque. But then it's
Sure.
like really nice and smooth. They don't have to worry about the clutch or anything. It's got hand brakes, up on the top, and good mirrors, and it's just so easy. Like they've obviously been looking at the bike and thinking how beautiful it is, but they ride it around, they do some laps around the factory, and they go like, "Oh my god, man, this thing is awesome! This is so much fun. I could see myself riding this every day." And they do. These people, they buy a Beachman and they just love it, and it's so nimble. It's very easy to ride if you live in a city. You need to weave around traffic and stuff like that,
Sure.
which makes it really quick and easy. Like if you're calculating it here in Toronto, your Google Maps time of where you're going, basically the way to figure out a Beachman, because it's not the cycling time, it's basically the driving time just divided in half is how long it's going to take you to get there.
All right.
Because you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about traffic. You don't have to worry about finding parking. You can just like pop up anywhere. And so they really love that convenience. And I think that
Hmm.
is the key thing as well for these guys that are experienced riders, right? It's the same reason that, it's a beautiful day. You got to go somewhere and you've got your GMC Sierra and you've got your Triumph and you're going to hop on the Triumph. Um, but, let's say it's like, it's a busy day. You got to go grab something, you need to already drop your kid off at your friend's place or whatever. And you can either like get your leathers on, get the trucks warmed up, make sure that she's all good, tires are pumped, you can make sure the oil's good. And hopefully you got enough gas where you're going, and it's a big ride, and you still have to deal with, you know, being in traffic and finding parking and all that, and um, or you can just like hop on the Beachman, turn the key, it works. You're on it, you're done, right? You just throw your helmet on. You don't really need leathers because it doesn't go that fast, you know. And so
Sure. Sure.
you're just cruising over to your buddy's place or grabbing some coffees. It's just perfect. And so a lot of guys end up loving it for that reason. You know, they have this thing that's like their perfect little daily. And then when they want to go out into the countryside and riding with their friends, they leave the Beachman behind and they go take their serious bike. But it has a place that is a totally different functional experience for a rider, you know, to slide it into their garage and be able to enjoy both bikes.
It almost sounds like it doesn't replace necessarily if somebody already has a motorcycle, it complements it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the cherry on top.
What was it like when you rode that first like production vehicle? Like when you were able to throw a leg over, like, okay, this is the 64. Like, you know, what was that like?
It was amazing, man. Oh my God. Yeah, we were in a parking lot of a storage mart where we kept all the bikes. We didn't have a business to operate out of, so we just put all the parts and everything in the storage mart, and then Steve would build them in the storage locker.
Sure.
And we unloaded the first shipping crate by hand. Uh, the three of us, me and Steve and his buddy, and
Mm-hmm.
there were four of us actually. And um, essentially from there, yeah, we like got a bike ready to go, threw a leg over it, rode around the parking lot, and it was just like, thank God, you know, we just spent all this time and money, and if the bike is good, you know, that was the biggest worry. Was is this thing going to be as good as we think it is on paper? Because up until then, I had that real first ride was the first time I rode Steve's prototype, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah,
never
sure.
forget that, man. Like rolling out of his garage and just ripping around my neighborhood, and I remember I got it up to I got it up to 84 kilometers an hour, and
Okay.
on this bridge going over a river, and I was yelling, "She goes 84!" And this dude heard me and started laughing so hard on the sidewalk as I rode past. He had no idea what I was experiencing, you know, but like, yeah, it was awesome. And then, yeah, no, the first bike riding was just incredible. And then getting the first ones out. And in the very beginning, the way our business worked was I'd go down to the beach on Saturday because Steve and I had
Mm.
full-time jobs for the first full year that we were running the business. We still had jobs. So
Okay.
I'd
Yeah.
put up Facebook Marketplace links and, you know, Instagram and stuff. And I'd say like, hey, you know, we're going to be doing test rides on Saturday down by Cherry Beach. People would meet us down there, and then they would test ride the bike up and down this kind of a road with a cul-de-sac at the end so they could turn around and come back.
Sure.
And if they liked it, they would the Canadian equivalent of Venmoing us, you know, and then that night Steve would build their bike in his garage like to the spec that they wanted. And
Yeah.
then on Sunday morning, I'd go and pick it up from his garage and put it on the back of my FJ Cruiser, and then I'd deliver it to their house. And that was how the business ran for the
Yeah. You're
first
just
like 6 months,
making it
basically.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So no, those early days were a lot of fun, and there was a point in then where I think we'd sold about 25 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad sat us down, and my dad's a entrepreneur in his own right. He started a brewery back when I was a baby, and
Oh,
so he,
nice.
you know, I've grown up with watching my parents go through it. You know, same thing we experienced. Like they didn't have money when they started, and so they really went from ground zero to running their business where they're at now, um, and so they've been incredible source of advice. They didn't invest in the business or anything, but they've helped us throughout the process. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but there was a moment where my dad sat us down and was like, you know, guys, you just sold 25 of these things. You need to order like 150 now. Like this is it. It's a business. The numbers make sense. You just
You've turned the corner.
don't.
Yeah. It's time to pull the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. There's no more waiting to figure it out. Just go. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the first like moment that was kind of serious, and when we thought, okay, what does it look like? Where do we have to get where we can quit our jobs and do this full time?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and now you're selling them in Canada. You're selling them in the U.S. Um, where where can you kind of where's the easiest place to go to kind of get one and maybe try one out? You said you kind of mentioned earlier that there's maybe some dealers, or is it direct to consumer? How does that work?
Yeah, so our model for distribution is kind of like Apple. Like you can get the iPhone anywhere, right? You can buy it on their
Sure.
website. You could buy it at like a
A Verizon store, a T-Mobile store. Yeah,
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 there you go. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so you can go into one a store like that, or you could go to a Best Buy, right? Like pretty much everyone sells the iPhone. Price is the same.
Sure.
So that's similar with us. We've got dealers across the United States. You can go to our website, look at the dealer map. That's always the best way, right? You can go in, you can test ride the bike, you can, taste the ice cream yourself before you go for it. Um, and that also means you know where you're going to have your local service center. Um, but you can also buy online from our website. We ship direct to front door. We've built this awesome system where the bike, we have this custom designed pallet and box system. So the bike ships fully built. It's not like you got to assemble it, put the front on or anything. It ships like fully built, battery charged, key in the ignition, like ready to go.
Mhm.
So you buy it on our website, ships to your house. It takes about like 2 or 3 weeks, including shipping and production, because we build the bike to order generally if it's got any kind of customizations, and there's a wealth of customizations as well. Um, so aside from that, you wait for the bike, it shows up, and then yeah, you're ready to ride. And then for our customers who buy direct from us, we work very closely and tirelessly with our customers to ensure that wherever you bike in America, wherever you buy a bike in the United States, we will find you a service center to take care of you. A lot of the time that ends up being a dealership,
Sure.
someone who
Okay. Yeah.
they want their, you pop your tire, we find somewhere to pump it up for you. You bring the Beachman in, they go like, oh my God, this thing's awesome. And then they end up selling the bike. It's a very common thing for us. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah, that's kind of the process. You can check it out online, take the leap, order it to your house, and yeah, we stand behind our bikes and we take care of our customers. So.
Yeah, nice. Well, let's dive into just the electric bike kind of market and industry a little bit. What are maybe some misconceptions that you've had to dispel in bringing this bike to market and getting people to ride one of these things?
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest issue with electric right now is always range.
Sure.
Obviously that was the big complaint about Tesla in the early years and cars in general is this range anxiety concept. And I think it's more pronounced in electric bikes than it is in cars. They've kind of solved it in cars. They have 500-600 kilometers of range now, all the standard EVs. But it's at the cost of like absolute metric ton of literally a metric ton
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
lithium
say, yeah,
batteries
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that go into each car. And that's what makes them so expensive. And with bikes, you don't have that option because they're so small that when you add more lithium, screws up your handling.
Hmm.
The bike gets heavy. B, range goes down because your bike is heavier. And C, it gets incredibly expensive. So what we look at in the electric motorcycle space are the two big players in America being Zero and Livewire, who, I mean, Livewire has totally failed.
Mm,
They spent, I think, $3 billion developing that bike, and it's an
yeah.
awesome bike. It's super fast. There's that awesome series Long Way Up with Ewan McGregor where he and his buddy rode them from Argentina to Alaska,
Yeah.
and what a crazy undertaking that is compared to doing it on a gas bike. But they did
Yeah.
it, and um, but these so many years later, the reality is to get those performance numbers that experienced riders are expecting out of a full highway speed motorcycle. Those live wires are like 30 grand. I
Yeah.
could buy two full spec Ducatis for that amount of money. Like yes, Harley Davidsons go for $30,000 to $60,000, but that's an incredible niche and it's a really serious product. Whereas the Livewire is supposed to replace a pretty standard 500cc bike. It's not like you're getting this boat that's made out of chrome and
Right. Or you're not getting a gold wing that can, yeah, that's, yeah.
going cross country. Yeah, like they still only have like 300 miles of range or something like that. If that, maybe 250. And so there's a misconception in the general market that they're incredibly expensive and they don't go very far. With our bike, it's still kind of the case on the second category, right? That they don't go super far.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, I would say, intentional because it's allowed us to fix the first problem, right? Our bike's $5,000. So it's the same price as getting a Grom or whatever.
Sure.
And the reality is when people are getting those little bikes, they're not using them to commute on the highway between cities, because it's sketchy, right? On a little 125, like it's barely going to be keeping up redlining on the highway.
Yeah.
And so the myth we dispel is that you don't have to ride like that, right? There are obviously people who are going to be commuting between cities or between distant suburbs in a major hub, and the Beachman just isn't for them. And we don't try to convince them that it is. But for people who live and work in the same town, be it a small town or a city as big as New York or LA or anything in between, it is perfect. The bike has essentially, it depends on the speed setup, but between 50 and 80 miles of range. And so it's more than enough. If your commute is 10 miles, you're going across town, or even 20, from one end of a city to the other.
Sure.
Bike's going to be fine. And, people worry about charging and timing like that, but we made the battery removable on this bike, which limits the size and the range because you have to physically be able to carry it at
Sure.
a convenient enough weight. So for people who have a long commute, let's say 30 miles, if you're worried about range, you just bring the battery into your office and, put a little saddlebag on the Beachman. You bring your charger with you. It looks like a laptop charger. You just plug it in under your desk. And then you got a full battery at the end of the day. And that's the advantage of EVs. People get hung up on that idea of like getting stranded charging your vehicle in the middle of a long trip. When the reality is, rarely is a trip going to consume your whole tank. Like I live, a few miles away from work.
Mm-hmm.
I charge my Beachman like once every 2 weeks, basically.
Oh, no way.
So I just plug it in. I plug it in at the office, and then, Toronto is only about 15 miles across end to end. So I'm ripping all week. I'm going wherever I want to go. And eventually the battery gets low and I plug it in the morning when I get to work. And that's that. I never charge at home. I never charge in between. And that's really the true riding experience of someone who's urban, and getting them to understand that and believe that that's a convenient and excellent way to get around, and just kind of a lifestyle, of total freedom and convenience.
Yeah.
Once people understand that and they hear it from other Beachman riders, they see it from reviews and YouTube videos and comments on our social media, that people get sold very quickly after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of is a mindset shift, not just for electric motorcycles, but just EVs in general, where it's like, especially if you can take the battery with you, it's like, well, if I got to charge this, I either got to be at home or I got to run like a 200-foot extension cord out from my office window or whatever. It's like, no, you can just take the battery, like you said, put it under your desk, or you don't have to worry about necessarily like a garage setup. I mean, even if it's if you have the availability to do so, you could probably bring it into your apartment or something and charge it that way in your living room or something. And, it's not, I think the convenience is what people must get hung up on, right? Or they don't understand.
Yeah. And you're on that point, like on my personal setup. So I have a house that I rent, but I don't have a garage. So I just bring the bike into my backyard. I put a cover on it and then I bring my battery inside. And that's that, although I don't bring my battery inside to charge because I don't need to, but that's what you would do if you're charging it at home. And then the other reality is, for the winter, people get nervous about the battery because it'll get damaged if you leave it out in the cold. But same thing, you just take it out and just put it in a closet somewhere and it's dealt with. So.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about winterizing a motorcycle, and especially an old one. You were talking about having a 125 or a small motorcycle and redlining on a highway. I have an old Honda CM400. It's 79. I mean, the styling, you can't be beat or whatever. But I remember, like, I don't know, this is a long time ago, but I was on the highway in America doing 75 on this thing, redlining. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like a terrifying experience. It's not fun. I think there's that, or this thought that like, you're going to be riding whatever motorcycle you get, like it has to be able to ride across the country. It has to be able to go highway speed. It has to be able to do all of this stuff all at the same time or be ready to do it. And it's like, you have to almost like look at how you live your everyday life and think about it like honestly, and to me, it seems like the convenience of EVs and of a Beachman, I mean, is like, it's almost like just another piece of tech in the best way possible, combined with a mode of transport. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And like the other thing too is that Americans, I think they get trapped in this mindset of, like you're saying, I'm going to ride across the country of America because that's what Americans do.
That's what we do, man.
Yeah, man. But the reality is, once you have the bike, it opens this other lifestyle up to you, which is just exploring where you are. And like, it's funny, a guy brought his Beachman in on Friday for a tune-up, and he upgraded his older Beachman to the new powertrain. And I was asking him about his bike because it has the second highest mileage I've seen. He's got 11,000 miles on his Beachman.
Jeez. Okay.
And he's done all of those miles in the city, like just riding, 70 miles at a time.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
I was like, dude, like, tell me about, like, what do you do? How are you riding this much? Like, I only have 3,000 on my bike and I own the company, And he goes, well, like, me and all my buddies, we live on the same street, and all four of us bought Beachmans. And every day we just like rip around. Like, one of them is in a band. So we like go to his place and they do like a band thing. And we're just like cranking beers, doing some band. And then we get up and we go grab some pizza. And then like, like pick the kids up from daycare, throw the kid on the back because there's room for two on the bike.
Yeah.
And, like there's just like this possibility of like just ripping around Toronto. Like the other day we went out and we went on a fishing trip in our city. We just like went down to the river and, like hung out there and then like crashed at some guy's house. And we did like a 2-day like thing in the city of like fishing and going to these bars and stuff. And it's just like, dude, that is unbelievable. Like you're getting every ounce of life out of that bike.
Yeah.
And that is the way that we want to encourage people to see themselves living once they get the bike. Is you don't have to go all the way to Arkansas, to feel like you've had a good day's ride. It's okay to just go, to the edge of your neighborhood and then a little bit further and see what's out there instead.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. What is kind of next on the horizon for you then? What's coming up next from Beachman and from you?
Yeah. So the big thing is we're going to Europe, so Beachman just got our international motorcycle manufacturing certification. It's a huge step for us, starting from two guys building e-bikes in a garage.
Yeah.
And we're really excited to go there, especially because, the great challenge that we've done, people lose it. They can't believe it when they come from an environment like Italy or something, or Southern Florida. And they go, sorry, you guys started a motorcycle company in Canada? Like the country where there's 6 feet of snow 6 months of the year? How the heck did you do that?
Yeah.
And we go like, well, it was goddamn difficult is how we did it. And, we had to make all our money in 6 months and then just kind of like hibernate through the winter like a polar bear
right.
Or a brown bear, I should say. I mean, and we just found a way to make it work as a small business, but it's given us an extremely hardy sensibility, and reputation in the way we manage ourselves and spend our money. And, now going to a country like Europe where we've gone through this difficult experience that we're still going through every day,
mm-hmm.
which is not only are we advertising our product and trying to convince people that a Beachman is the right thing to buy, but we have to make it known to people in North America that this kind of motorcycle exists.
Yeah.
Because no one knows that it does, right?
Yeah.
When people think about 50cc, all they can imagine is a Vespa or a moped. That's it, right? Nothing else has ever existed. And we're going, hey, did you know you could get a little motorbike and it's a motorcycle and it looks cool and it's electric and there's all these things about it, right? But it's a cafe racer and you can customize it, right? yes, it's a cafe racer, but you can also put mid-rise bars on it, so you don't have to lean over,
Oh, sure.
if you don't want to be in that cool stance. And so there's all these things that we have to educate people on before they buy it. Like if you are an entrepreneur and you start a brewery, all you have to do is convince people to drink your beer because they're already drinking beer. There's this, 300 million person market in the continent that enjoys a beer. And for us, there's like 10,000 guys that are like imagining in their head, I wonder if there's an electric cafe racer. And then everyone else has no idea,
Yeah.
So we're creating the market as we sell into it. It's literally like building the train tracks in front of us as we
As
drive
you
the
go.
train.
Yeah.
When you go to Europe, you go to countries like France and Italy and Spain, these bikes exist. They're very popular, and they're kind of the main way that people are getting around, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
is these small 50cc and 125cc motorcycles. Most of them are still gas, but there's massive growth over there in the electric side. It's almost entirely these kind of value-based Chinese brands. And so we're coming in as the first real authentic brand that's also affordable, that isn't the 15,000 euro super exclusive hand-built European option, right? We're
Sure.
coming in with
Sure.
something that's affordable. And we think that in the first year, we'll probably sell more bikes in Europe than we have in our entire company history in North America. Because, like we're not teaching the fish how to swim. We're just telling them that, this is the way to go. So I think that going going into Europe is going to be great for us. We're also going to learn a lot, because there's going
Yeah.
to be real competition. And then on top of that, we're also changing the bike. So the one thing that we realize with Europe is they don't need a removable battery because there's charging stations everywhere,
Oh, really?
and like literally on every block in every city. And so, yeah, it's crazy, right? Like a electric vehicle adoption there, I think here it's like 4%, and in Europe it's like 20. So it's a
Wow.
totally different place.
Yeah.
And so for us going there, we can drop the removable battery. And once we did, we realized, oh my God, we can fit almost triple the battery size
Oh,
that we
geez.
currently have in the bike, like well more than double. So we're going to be able to have a 120-mile range on our bike,
Yeah.
which, yeah, it opens up a lot. Like for a bike that was only going like 50 miles an hour, that's a lot of use, and we're
Hmm.
not falling into the trap of, okay, we can get this giant battery, let's put this giant motor in it, and then we're just back where we started. The bike's only going 60, 70 miles. So we're just only increasing the battery, and that extra range, I think, it's going to make it best in class
Yeah.
for what it is, even in Europe, and also just have the coolest brand and the most interesting message. So I'm very excited. I think it's going to change things a lot for us, and the Americans are going to benefit from that discovery of the increased range as well as it becomes a more seriously useful tool in the US.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic where it's like because the infrastructure for EV charging is there in Europe, you can have longer range. And if we had that here in North America, then people wouldn't worry so much about the range, but we don't have the infrastructure, at least yet. So
Yeah,
maybe it's kind of going to be a window into what could be here in the US and Canada for that matter as well.
totally. Yeah, and it creates that more casual sense of you're charging just whenever is convenient, right? When there's chargers everywhere. So like you stop for lunch, you plug your car in for an hour and it's charged.
Yeah.
That's really the way it is in the rest of the world. It's very interesting. I spent some time in China because a lot of our parts come from there. So we went and visited.
Hmm.
In China, 50% of the vehicles in Guangzhou, the city we're in, are electric already. And
That's wild.
I would ask everyone, like, okay, what's the experience? Like, do you guys have these superchargers? Like, what do you do? And they go, no, everyone charges at home. Because in China, every single new apartment building, 100% of the parking spots have to have
A
electric vehicle
charger.
charging in them.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, so you just go home and plug it in, and they've got this crazy power grid that can handle it.
Yeah.
North America has a long ways to go there, but for a little motorcycle, it doesn't really matter. You can just plug wherever you want.
Yeah. Well, it's talking to you, the future of motorcycling and of EVs just in general kind of seems bright and exciting and interesting. So thanks for shedding some light and bringing a bright spot to the EV market and the motorcycle market as well. I think, like I said, I've talked to a lot of people who worry about the motorcycle market and if kids want to ride and whether, how the future of motorcycling is going to go. And, I feel like you guys are somebody who's like leading the charge into the new frontier of motorcycling, because at least from what my experience has been, people still want to ride. Kids want to ride. There's that allure and that magic sense of being on two wheels, which you yourself have experienced, and I think that desire for that feeling is never going to go away. It's just going to be how we do it. So I think it's super cool what you guys are doing, man.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So thank you for being here, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll talk to you guys soon, man.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Driven to Ride. Interact with us and check out full unedited conversations, photos, interviews, video interviews, plus other goodies on YouTube or Instagram at Driven to Ride Podcast. Or you can check us out at driventoridepodcast.com. And make sure you leave us a rating and review from wherever you get your podcasts, too. If you have an idea for an episode or a guest, or you want to invite us out on an adventure, email us, hello@driventoridepodcast.com. Driven to Ride is wholly owned by Flint Rock LLC, made possible with help from Matthew Miles, and written, hosted, and produced by me, Mark Long. We'll see you out there.